So my name's Brittany. And today we would just like you to start off this interview process if you would like to introduce your company and tell us a bit about it and your charity organization.
Yeah, so the company is Hope Street. At the moment, we're tackling everything within the community since lockdown. So we're tackling loneliness, social isolation, bereavement, relationship breakdown, dementia friendly. So we're pretty much doing everything that the doctor would usually do, I suppose.
My name's Rachel Daly. I am co-founder and CEO of The Positivity. We're a social enterprise, mental health and wellbeing business, which helps parents and carers of children with additional health or care needs.
And we began in 2018. However, we became a community interest company in 2019.
So how did your organisation start, Sheila?
So because of my experiences with mental health and the experiences I had through services and feeling let down, we decided that we would host our own sessions.
When you first started the organisation, was it aimed at a specific group?
Over 16s, and for mental health and carers for people looking after somebody with a mental health condition. However, as time's gone on, I've learned about the things that people need, and I've also been using Maslow's hierarchy of needs as a model. And as I say to people all the time, if you haven't got the basics in life, then you can't function with the rest of your life. If you haven't got a roof over your head and you haven't got food, you're not financially stable, then your mental health will be affected. What we do is we get to the core of the issue first. So if a person is struggling financially and with food, with the accommodation they're living in, then we use our letting agent to rehouse a person, and we're a food bank host, so we can help them with food. We also apply for benefits for people. So we put benefits applications in for people if it's a financial issue and they're entitled to benefits. So we'll do that as well.
When Jack was on treatment the first time round, we had this, because he was only 3 and he wasn't actually sick as such, in the traditional way, as you would imagine somebody who was poorly would be. He'd kind of, the symptoms were he lost weight, he stopped eating, looked a bit gaunt, but he didn't really complain about feeling unwell himself. It was just us that noticed these changes in him because he was only little. So we made the decision very early on that we wouldn't talk to him about what was going on in like explicit terms. Like I say, he was 3 years old. We thought he probably won't understand it. He doesn't really need to know. So with that in mind, we didn't want people sending thank you cards, get well cards and things like that to us, because we were like, he's going to be thinking, get well from what? There's nothing up with me. And so we said to people, we don't want that. If you want to send him colouring in books or stuff to keep him occupied while he's at the hospital having his treatment or what, brilliant. So his childminder said, well, all the kids have been asking for him in the playgroup, so what can we do? And I said, well, I don't know, draw him a picture. So next thing, she knocked on the door with this massive painting, which I've sent you the picture of, I think, and it was a painting that all the children had done of their hands. So they all painted the hands, and the hands were the leaves, and it was a big massive tree. So we called it the Positivity. So it was like his friends all sending him positive messages. Yeah, we got it framed, and it became a symbol, I suppose, of our approach as a family to the treatment, and Jack's tenacity and his resilience and all the rest of it. And I just said, the picture was behind Lee's head, and I said, the Positivity, and he was like, oh yeah. So that was it. And so we actually had the name before we even knew what we were going to do.
So we do quiz night on a Friday, we do walk and talk therapy on a Sunday, on a Tuesday we do peer support with teachings of strategies. So they get a lot of emotional intelligence within that. They learn about toxic relationships, which is what we're doing tonight.
We've got those kind of like soft touch, if you like, entry level support, which is important because that kind of connection is important. And then we've got some more structured programs, which we have been really lucky to be partnered with another amazing charity called Open Door. And they've developed a combination of CBT and mindfulness program. So there's a 4-week program, which is around stress management, and talks about boundaries and stress bucket and coping mechanisms and gratitude journaling and all things like that on a one-to-one basis. And then there's an 8-week program, which is more traditional CBT, if you like, but it's done on like a mentor basis. So the parent will be matched with another parent or carer who's got similar interests, and they will work together through this 8-week program.
Wow.
And the idea being, they'll have probably started that with low mood, anxiety, low level sort of mental health challenges, and then they'll progress through that program.
And between 2020 and 2025, GPs will roll out their workload into the community. However, no money has been put into the community services to provide these services that are going to be rolled out. So the demands on Hope Street are going to be phenomenal. I applied to the CCG for a fund of £25,000 just to pay the rent and the service charges. I didn't receive that. There is money out there, but unfortunately, Hope Street's not receiving it.
Lots of different approaches, because we found that depending on the parent or the carer that we're working with, their ability to access support is directly linked to whatever their caring responsibilities are. So, for example, we haven't got any sort of prescription of what conditions we can or can't work with.
Yeah.
A lot of the families that we support have got children who've got special educational needs like autism or ADHD, for example. But then there are also families whose children have got 24/7 round the clock complex care needs, with trachees and things like that. So it looks different, and we've had to develop that and make it as accessible as possible. And it's still a work in progress. It's by no means perfect. And I think it's about supporting people to find what works for them. But it's about, like I say, it's parent-focused, parent-centred and outcome-focused work is the only way to make a lasting difference, I think.
So what would you say, obviously you've mentioned about funding, what would you say is kind of your biggest challenge with kind of policies, or what policies relate most to your organisation?
So we've got all our policies in place, and we've got public liability and employment liability insurance. When we go into charity status, which is what we're possibly going into next, there'll be indemnity insurance, so we'll have more insurance to pay. Everything comes at a cost. DBS applications, again, everything comes at a cost to Hope Street.
What advice would you give to a prospective student that's embarking in a degree in your field?
To go through a counselling process, so have counselling, CBT, go through that process and go to a place like Hope Street and get frontline experience, because the practicality of it is better than the theory. The theory is great, you need both, but the practicality aspect of it will teach you a lot more.
Is it important to have had the lived experience of it? I think it is. I think it is actually, thinking about it in that context, because, on the surface of it, you see me, you probably wouldn't think of me as being somebody who's necessarily has had a challenge with their mental, if you put me in a lineup or hear me talk and I'm confident and whatever, I don't tick all of the boxes that the textbooks might tell you You know,
yeah.
that person's going to have had challenges with their mental health. And again, like I said, I did a psychology degree, and until I experienced anxiety and depression myself, I didn't get it at all. When other people spoke about it, I was just like, it didn't make sense to me, because I just couldn't connect to it in
Once you
that way.
experience it yourself, that's when you realise how hard it is.
Yeah, and how it's not necessarily the textbook. It's different for everybody.
Yeah.
But what would you say needs to change in terms of the way we view and treat people with mental illnesses?
So it needs, for me, it needs to be treated in line with physical illness. The Equality Act should be enforced more. I think it should be taken more seriously by unions. I would also say there's a lot of stigma around mental health. When people are sectioned, they're ashamed, embarrassed. And I have people all the time saying to me, I don't want anyone knowing I was sectioned. Well, why? Because it's a mental illness as is a physical illness. If you had a physical illness and you had a plaster Paris put on your arm, you wouldn't be hiding it. You'd be going round to everybody saying, sign my plaster Paris. I want people to be out there saying, you know what? I've been sectioned and I've overcome it. And look at me now, I'm running my own business. Look at me now, I'm back in work. I'm part of the wider community. If you look at me on the outside, you don't see somebody with a mental health condition, right? But inside, some days I'm falling apart, and it's about learning how to manage that.
There is a big issue as well with once someone, you know, accepts, yeah, okay, I'll get help. I want to admit that I'm struggling. It's just not there.
That's why Hope Street's important, because our services are imminent. People can get support imminently.
We just ceased everything. Everything just completely came to a total stop. And then when the whole country went into lockdown and we kind of knew a little bit more about what was going on, we realised obviously we had the online tools we could use. We had a Facebook group. It had about 100 members in the Facebook group, but it wasn't how we connected, because the whole ethos, the whole organisation is based on connection and, you know, making people feel good or doing things together that make you feel good. So it was really difficult to kind of get my head around how we were going to do that. So I used to go for my little walks when you could go on a daily hour exercise or wherever you were allowed to do, and I was doing videos, you know, just kind of talking to people, talking to my phone mainly. And then that was getting quite a good response. So we decided to structure that with a more sort of timetabled support group offer. And we've seen then the membership in the group has grown since last year. I think there's 477 members now in the group from 100 this time last year. We haven't really properly been able to utilise that space in our home, and it's an amazing event space. There's a bar, there's decking, you know, there's so many possibilities there. So once the restrictions are lifted again, we're going to do a lot more socials there and use that as a real kind of social space that parents and carers can come to. So we've got loads of ideas around, you know, women's circles and things like that. That's been a really popular idea. Different types of therapy, getting different guest speakers in, open mic nights. We're going to have fundraisers there. Miley's a DJ, so he's going to put on, you know, like have Sunday sessions on there where people can come down and have a drink. We're right near the river as well, so it's like a nice sort of Sunday afternoon activity that families can do.
Have you found it quite hard to kind of tailor your services in terms of COVID?
So everything's done via Zoom, apart from the walk and talk therapy, which is outdoors, so we can do that for up to 15 people, providing we social distance. I'm working on a weekend now, whereas I didn't before. I'm working of an evening, like I said earlier, which I didn't before. I'm coaching pretty much every day, taking phone calls and coaching. So it's all down to me at the moment. The people who do sponsor us are the Rotary, who've had their hands tied in terms of fundraising opportunities that they do for us.
Would you say that you've had like an increase in people in interest in your organisation since the beginning of the pandemic?
Right, so the engagement on social media last year, before lockdown, was 40 people. 1,700 engagement today. Yeah, that's today, but last year when lockdown hit, it was 40,000.
Once lockdown lifts, I think especially Hope Street's going to see even more of an increase, because people are going to be trying to deal with everyday life again, from going from not seeing anybody, complete social isolation, to going, okay, you can go and see people, and it's extremely difficult for them. Do you know what I mean?
There's 1 in 4 people, they say, with a mental health condition. There's more than 1 in 4. Only 1 in 4 have been diagnosed.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of this is quite topical actually. So I'm really proud of the podcast that we've just launched. So basically, we had an idea that parents who the story, obviously we hear the stories of these incredible people all the time at coffee mornings or whatever, and they truly are amazing, inspirational, incredible people. So I wanted to give them a platform to share those stories. You know, some people are more comfortable talking like me than others. You know, some people you can't shut up. But I wanted to give people a really safe, comfortable place to tell us about their experiences, and also raise awareness of whatever the diagnosis was that their child had, or whatever the challenges have been that they'd overcome. So we launched that a couple of weeks ago. So I think that's probably one of my proudest moments. And I guess the response as well as an organisation. So to grow something from literally making an application to a startup program on my smashed iPhone to, having an actual place that people can come and connect together, I think that's been pretty special as well.
There's just so many. It's like, getting people back into work, getting people onto higher education. There was a girl who used to come and sit by my side. She wouldn't move from my side. And she used to hold on to me the whole time. I used to have to go and pick her up. And now she's running her own business. It's moments like that when you see people go from an empty shell to blossoming.